was doing his thing, committing the financial fraud. Then he was kind of hanging out with a lot of these Wiseguys. Did he do business with these guys when he got out, or did he kind of, or he just kind of hung around with them, your father?
Okay, so remember one thing about, my father's a child of the 70s and 80s, right? Yeah. In the 60s too. So back then, if you were a big time fraud guy like my father, you're going to pay somebody, right? So who was my father paying? Okay, my father's scam was called Boardwalk Marketplace, which kind of makes me smile because
I remember that. Yeah. Can you go into that? Can you go finish your answer and then go into that scam? Because that's fucking insane what he did.
Yeah, no, I think it's great because, people might not have known what we meant, but today everybody's probably seen Boardwalk Empire with Nucky Thompson. And, in Boardwalk Empire, you see Atlantic City in its heyday, right? When there was cotton candy and Ferris wheels and people walked in the boardwalk. Well, I don't need to tell you that, when you went to Atlantic City in the 70s and 80s, it was the worst ghetto. I mean, worse than inner city New York.
Correct.
Bad.
Yeah.
And look, that was my father's dream of Boardwalk Marketplace. It was, look, we're going to make it like the times of Nucky Thompson. We're going to bring families back. We're going to make it a Las Vegas on the East Coast. But the financial mechanism is what really did it. If you think about the timing, right, the 80s or early 80s, we had just gone through stagflation, right? So what did Reagan do? Reagan made 4-to-1 tax shelters. What does that mean? Means you convince rich people to come off their money by saying, don't worry, if you lose your money, you're going to get 4 times that in tax savings. It creates velocity of money and hopefully gets the economy running again. Because we had a stagnant economy with high inflation, which hadn't been seen before. And by the way, the principal idea behind that is not wrong. The problem is you got guys like my father, it gives them a license to steal, right? They go around to a bunch of rich guys and they say, I got a deal you can't lose on. Correct. You invest $100,000 with me. But better than that, you don't even have to invest it. I'm going to borrow it from the bank I have. All you have to do is be a credit signer on this. So sign your name, Mr. Millionaire, and then you'll get 4-to-1 tax savings if we lose. But I think we're going to make you, I don't know, $5 million or whatever. So everybody says, what? I don't have to put up any money? This sounds like the greatest thing of it. So he signed up. Yeah. My dad raised $400 million that way to renovate the boardwalk in Atlantic City. Now, needless to say, that money was going into our lifestyle. It was not going into boardwalks in Atlantic City. But who controlled Atlantic City in those days? You're a mob guy. It was Philly. Yeah. Philly was right by them. So my dad was paying the Philadelphia crime family for that deal. Millions and millions of dollars. And by the way, for street guys, that was big money. For Philly, that was
even back then.
Oh, yeah. So that's where my dad, I think, got his first real taste of the mafia off of Wall Street. You get big enough, they're going to come knocking on your door. I mean, I remember some incidents in Greenwich, like there was a guy, I was too young, and they told me, I didn't understand it. There was a black guy that was casing our house. And the cops, got him. They pulled him over and said, what are you doing? The guy had a long string for arson. Well, that was Philadelphia saying, hey, John. And, I didn't understand. As a little kid, I thought people lit houses on fire because they wanted to see the fire. Sure. I didn't understand what was going on.
Yikes. All right. So before we graduate from that, because I have one last question. Actually, 2 questions. But the first one is that actually seemed like a legitimate, plausible message and a legitimate project. Was this something your father intended to do, but just mismanaged it, or that was just never going to happen?
Well, let's be honest. Okay, so my father's greed is over the top, but all of these deals of these underground financiers sounds great. Prosecco wine, order me a Gambino, sounds legitimate, right? Well, I could see that. All these things, and by the way, the more real and amazing it looks, the bigger the fraud is. People put more and more money into it. And listen. Guys, rich guys love wise guys.